Hi everyone, I'm Carol Keller from Illinois in the United States, and I'm so sorry I can't be with you live for today's Global Share Fair, but my project today will be featuring the Through It Together stamp set and then the Wonderful World stamp set and designer series paper that are bundled as and are one of our celebration offerings. What is celebration? Well, if you make qualifying purchases, you can receive those celebration items for free. Please reach out to the demonstrator who invited you to the Share Fair for more information on how you can earn them. And let's get started with the project. Here is the card that I designed for today's Global Share Fair. I hope you like it. I had so much fun designing and playing and trying to figure out how to use the beautiful papers. So let me show you how I did it. Usually I start with a basic white card base, but when I did that, it just wasn't giving me the look that I wanted. So I ended up going with one in Orchid Oasis, one of our new wonderful in colors. They are stunning if you haven't seen them, and they all coordinate really well together. And then I cut a piece of the designer series paper, and it is cut at 2 inches by 4 1/4 inches or 5.5 centimeters by 10.5 centimeters. And we're going to put that on right away with our Stampin' seal. Making sure, of course, that it is oriented the right way and not upside down. And for the next part, we are going to create our pot. And I have a scrap of, again, the designer series paper, and I will show you everything that I used at the end. And this scrap is actually 1 7/8 by 1 5/8 or 4.2 centimeters by 4.7, and it's pretty much the smallest piece you could use to stamp and cut out the pot. Now on here, I did not stamp it, but I thought I would give it a try and stamp it. This stamp is from the Simply Succulents stamp set. And then there are coordinating potted succulents dies that we'll use to cut it out. So I'm just going to grab my rich raspberry ink and we'll stamp it. And I will cut that out in a moment, but we're going to do some more stamping before we do that. This is all I think we need the rich raspberry for. So we are done with that. And we'll do some more stamping. We'll stamp the sentiment, which comes from the Through It Together stamp set. And this is a much bigger scrap than I need, but that's all right. Better too big than too small. The set has some wonderful sentiments, which again, I'll show you at the end. There are so many in the set, and they are wonderful. So again, I will share those at the end. But for this, we're going to use the best way to get through things is together. And we're going to stamp that in Orchid Oasis. And that should be good. We will cut that out as well. So we'll kind of put that in the pile there to be cut out. And we will do the sentiment for the inside while we have the Orchid Oasis. So for that, actually, this can stay here. We need a scrap or a piece of basic white cardstock. And it has been cut to 4 inches by 5 1/4 or 10 centimeters by 14.4. And we're going to stamp the sentiment like I said. So on the inside, we're stamping I am here for you, again in the Orchid Oasis. But this time I'm gonna bring in a scrap just to make sure that that stamp is straight. Sometimes they're a little bit crooked. So you can always double check. And you can see, because the stamp is small, it's really easy to get excess ink on there. So I'm gonna be very gentle when I'm stamping. But I line it up. And see, it leans up just a touch. So I'll make that adjustment when I'm stamping here. Still leaning up a little bit, but not too bad. I can live with that. And no stray ink because I was very gentle with my stamping. While we're doing the inside, we are going to do some more stamping, and this involves a little bit of masking. So what is masking? It means you're covering up part of the image while you're inking or while you're stamping. In this case, I have the rose from that beautiful, wonderful world stamp set. And what I want is Rich Razzleberry, and actually I'm going to stamp it off, but Rich Razzleberry stamped off so it looks similar to this on the top. And for the leaves, I'm using Mossy Meadow. So this is how I'm going to do it. I have a mask that I've cut from our wonderful masking paper. So I basically just cut off a piece of paper from the masking paper, and you can see it's well loved and well used, but it's still sticky on the back, so I'm going to use it until it's not sticky anymore. And I just covered up the leaves. So now I'm going to again bring in that scrap and have it handy here. And then I am bringing in my Rich Razzleberry ink pad again. And I'm going to stamp, ink it up, I mean. That looks pretty good. It's nice and shaded. It doesn't say it's a distinctive stamp, but it certainly reminds me of one. And then we'll take that out of the way and take the mask off. And we're gonna stamp because I said I wanted to stamp off because I want it a little lighter. And then I'm gonna take my Mossy Meadow marker. I thought that was easier because you can't cover this up and mask it with the ink on it. So I'm just taking my Mossy Meadow Stampin' Right marker. Do not use blends on this. Blends will ruin your stamps. You can only use our Stampin' Right water-based markers for this. And I did initially use this for the flower too, but I will say it didn't give the same look. As if you do that, you don't have to, well, you don't have to mask. You would simply use your marker, stamp off, and then add the Mossy Meadow like we did. But it just didn't give me the look that I wanted. So I did it this way instead, using the ink pad. And it's been sitting here, so it's still pretty wet, but if you wanted to, you could huff, which is breathe on it a little bit to give it a little more juice. But I don't usually do that because it doesn't usually seem necessary. And so this gives more of the look that there is on the Designer Series paper. So the inside is done. So we can put that together with the card using our Stampin' Seal. And I did do the same thing on the envelope. I won't do it on camera, but it's the same thing. Inking up the stamp, stamping off with the mask here, adding the Mossy Meadow, and then stamping here. And then I also stamped Sending You This Paper Hug. Another one of the wonderful sentiments from the set, and probably my favorite one. I was going to use it on the inside, but I used it recently, so I decided to use it on the envelope instead. All right, so for the rest of the card, I have already pre-cut some pieces. I have used our wonderful Vellum. It's called Vellum Layering Designs, and you probably can't see it too well, but it's got white writing on the front, and there are some that have black. I'll show it to you at the end, but I wanted something a little more than plain vellum. So I cut this out using a die, again from the Potted Succulents die set. And I also cut out a border from that same vellum. And for this one, I used a piece of that vellum that is 1 1/4 inches by 5.5 or 3 centimeters by 14.9. And I simply ran it through right along the edge. So I put my die right along the edge of the vellum and then ran it through my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. And I probably will save this to use on another card. I also will take that same die, and I have a 1/2 inch by 5.5 inch or 1.4 centimeter by 14.9 centimeter piece of that Designer Series paper that coordinates with the pot. And I'm gonna lay it across just like this, right in the middle, so it's just wide enough to do that. And I'm gonna run that through my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. I wanted a narrow piece, and the reason I added this was an afterthought because I tried to use multi-purpose liquid glue to adhere the vellum to the card, and you can see here there are still bits of it and some here, so that's why I did this. But I think I have a solution then for how to hide the glue that's going to be on the vellum. So we're going to use this to do it. So I'm going to cut that out, and I'm going to cut out all 3 of those things, and I'll be right back. So this is what I ended up with. This is that piece of Designer Series paper that's cut, and I'm going to take this to use on another project, or either one. You could use either one. Maybe we'll use this one. So two very different looks, which is just happenstance for the way it cut on the designer series paper. But I think we'll try that one. And I can use this on another card. And so now it's just a matter of assembling. So we're gonna start off with that pot. And I know I still have some things missing, but we will get those in just a second. I'm just gonna put this on with some seal, and I'm gonna leave the top without seal so that we can tuck some of those flowers in. So we'll put it about here. And speaking of the flowers, I fussy cut them from the designer series paper. There was one sheet that looks like this, obviously, that we used, but then there were a couple of other sheets that had the same flowers, and so I fussy cut them. And there are 6, whoops, these are the same as those. I think we'll keep that one. I have 6 different flowers that I cut, but for this one I used 5 because, again, that odd number is pleasing to the eye. So the way I chose them, this one was not in this piece of designer series paper, so I left it out. So I'm going to do the same thing with this one. We're going to start, and I'm just going to lay them out before I adhere them to make sure that it will work. And we have this one, so this one will be included, this one, and this comes from the edge of the paper. Again, I'll show it to you at the end. So I'm going to make sure that gets tucked behind here where that edge will get covered. And then the same thing with this one was from an edge. And so I'm going to put that in and tuck it behind here. So no one is the wiser, even though it's not exactly a complete flower. And then we have this one and this one. Actually, they're all in this one, so it doesn't matter, but I think I'll use the one that has a little bit more color. And we'll do that. So I'll save this one for another card. And then I'm just adhering those with either seal or glue dots, depending on the size. The larger ones I'm using my seal for. Tuck it right under that. And I also kept one leaf. I tilted it so that it overlaps the pot because I thought that looked pretty. And for this one, I think we'll use glue dots for the rest since they're smaller. So I'm just putting one on the back of the flower. And again, we're going to tuck this so that it goes behind a little bit, but still looks like it's coming out of the pot. And again, I love the overlap of that. And then we'll do the one on the right-hand side. So we'll move those out of the way. And for this one, I'm going to use 2. It's very narrow here. There's just a tiny little piece, and I don't want it to get pulled off. So I am going to use 2 glue dots on this one. So you do want to be aware of that. Again, tucking it behind and behind this flower so that we don't see the side, except there, which we're going to, whoops, cover. Cover with this flower. So maybe we'll put some seal on this one. Again, it's just preference. You could use your multi-purpose liquid glue too, just whatever adhesive you want to use. And we're going to overlap that white. I'm going to tuck it behind this, but overlap that white so that the edge doesn't show. And this one too, it's a little bit thin, you know, narrow where I cut it. So I'm going to use a glue dot on each so that they are held firmly into place and won't tear off. And we'll tuck that one in. And there we have our gorgeous planter of flowers. Isn't that pretty? So now it's just a matter of putting the rest on. And so my idea this time is to put this on the bottom. And so we'll put our adhesive on the back of the vellum on the bottom. So for this, I used my glue dots because it does have a tendency, it is pretty thin, and Stampin' Seal won't work very well. You could use multi-purpose liquid glue, but I'm going to use my glue dots, and I'm going to put them on several, certainly one at each end and a couple in the middle, because I did find when I was adhering this one that it wants to move around and then it's not straight. So you do have to be kind of aware of that. So with a couple of extra glue dots, we can get it right where we want it on that beautiful vellum and not cover too much of it up, which is why I want to put it toward the bottom this time. I was hiding the glue the last time, and so that was why I did it the way I did. Okay, move this a little bit. Well, maybe we can leave that tiny little edge. I think I will do that. We've got the tiniest of borders at the bottom. Again, making sure that the designer series paper is straight, because it does want to move around. And so we've got a very narrow edge that you may not even be able to see, but a narrow edge of that vellum at the bottom. And so again, now we're going to put glue dots on the back where the designer series paper is so that they don't show, so that we can adhere that vellum. And the same thing, put 3 or 4. And then this goes on the bottom, so that vellum is adhered and it doesn't show. Because like I said, even using, I thought if I used the multi-purpose liquid glue with a sponge dauber and just dabbed a little bit on, it wouldn't show, but the first dab was kind of a lot and it did show, as you saw. So that's my solution. Then there's no glue to show. I do like the addition of the stamping on the pot versus this one. I like that. I hope you do too. And then for our sentiment, or our little tag, again, just going to use some seal and center it on the other part of the tag. And now we can, again, put seal here and it won't show. We'll just put it behind where the So Saffron part of the tag is. And no one will be the wiser. Could also add ribbon, but I didn't do it in this case. But let me see, let's grab some ribbon. This is the Orchid Oasis metallic woven ribbon, and these in color ribbons are just stunning. I do think this will make a nice addition. We will just make a loop that is long enough, make it a little bit longer, long enough to reach on either side of that tag. And so I'm going to put a glue dot in the middle to hold the two pieces, the two ends together of the ribbon. And then we'll snip it. Oh, pretty that end up. And then I'm going to put another glue dot on the front where the ribbons meet, where the two ends meet. And then we'll put that behind like this. Oh, I need it to be a little bit bigger, I think. Oh, no, maybe not. Yeah, I'm going to make it a little bigger. I'm going to make a larger one and I'll be right back. All right, so I've cut a longer one and I actually tucked this in on the first one. I think that looks good, but what I was going for is this right through the center on the back. And then we've already got seal on this. So we will put it this way, tucked a little bit underneath that flower and at an angle to add some interest. What do you think? I think it looks better with that little bit of beautiful sparkly metallic ribbon. And so then last but not least, all we have to do is add the rest of our bling, which is the wonderful brushed brass butterflies. As you can see, these are well used. I've used them quite a bit. I love them. And we will put, I put a large one over on the right hand side. Oh, that's right. I have one more thing to do that I just saw on here. I also cut from the vellum. I cut out this die from the potted succulents dies in that wonderful vellum, and I cut one which creates 2 strips, and then I cut the longer one a second time. So I'm going to do that and be right back. All right, now I've got my vellum, and I literally cut them out from a very small scrap of the vellum that was left over from cutting for these cards. So that's all I did was use a little scrap. And these I'm going to put on with a glue dot at the bottom, and we'll tuck each one in behind our flowers a little bit here. Let's see, I don't want it too long. Maybe I'll even cut it down. Let's see. Yeah, maybe I'll cut it down. Because now that everything else is here adhered, they're a little bit too long. So again, we'll just put a glue dot toward the bottom. And let's see, I want one here. But yes, again, we'll cut that one down a little bit. And then we'll tuck one in the back, so that will be small as well. And they are kind of sticking up a little bit, but it gives it a little more dimension, which is nice too. And so now we will put our butterflies on. Put that first one. Actually, I'm going to put it here to help hold that down. And then we will take two of the smaller ones. And now our card is complete. What do you think? I hope you like it. I do like it better with the Designer Series paper at the bottom, although I think it looks okay both ways, but I like this because it shows off the vellum just a little more, and I definitely like the addition of the stamping of the pot. I think that adds a little something. So I hope you like it. Thanks so much for joining us on our Global Share Fair. Again, I apologize that I couldn't be with you today. Oh, and before I say goodbye, let me show you some of the items that I used today, as I promised at the beginning, starting with the Wonderful World stamp set and the Wonderful World Designer Series paper. These are the wonderful papers, gorgeous, gorgeous color palettes. And then on the other side, some coordinating colors, such as the one we used today. And so this obviously was the strip that I used for the Designer Series paper here on the card, but I used this sheet because they're all separate. That gave me the idea of doing some fussy cutting. So I did just cut out some of the flowers from here, and the white was from the edge. So it's just really a tiny little bit that is straight on the edge. And then I cut the other one from here, actually from this side. And so I cut this one out and this one, and that's what I used for my card. So it's nice to be able to use what's on the edge and tuck them behind, and nobody's the wiser. But these items are rewards that you can earn with a qualifying purchase during Celebration, which is this month and next month. So beware of that. And if you order the other components that I used for the card today, you would qualify to get those for free. This is that wonderful Threw It Together stamp set. I think it's one of my favorite all-time sentiments stamp sets because it has so many different wonderful sentiments, and I love the fonts. I love the way they combine with each other. I love you no matter what. Sending you this paper hug, like I said, is my favorite. I miss you. I'm here for you with reviews today with much love. Don't let worry spoil your happy. I love that. And Forever Grateful is wonderful for a thank you note. Praying for blankets of healing around you and yours, another one of my favorite ones. So I really love this set, and that was why I chose to use it with the paper and the other stamp set today. I also used the Simply Succulents stamp set just to stamp that wonderful pot. And then I used the potted succulents dies for the tags, and again for the pot, and for the little flower that goes in, that I cut out in the vellum. And of course, last but not least, the basic borders dies. I've used this one, which is the one we used today, quite a bit. This one makes more of a cloud feel. These are nice for making an edge to your card. So just lots of wonderful things in that set. Lots of uses for that. And then the brushed brass butterflies, and that fabulous metallic woven ribbon in the Orchid Oasis. And so those were all of the items that I used for the card today. Again, thanks for joining me. We appreciate so much you watching us for our Global Share Fair. Please leave me some love in the comments, either in the Facebook group or on YouTube, and let me know what you think of the card. I hope you like it. I was very happy with how it came out. I'm not a big fussy cutter, but I just had the image of having those flowers coming out of a big pot, and I was really happy with the way it turned out. So thanks again. If you're interested in ordering, please contact the demonstrator who invited you to the Global Share Fair, and we will see you again soon. Take care, everyone. Happy stamping.